begun the recording, and we will go ahead and do the third topic: how to realize the non-existent small self and how one experiences one as bliss. Thank you.
It has happened some 100 years ago that a great devotee to a great master was sitting in meditation and prayer, and this devotee had a vision of the master saying to the devotee, "I am that I am, you are that which is not." And if you look at this statement, we realize that the master was speaking about the small self and the capital self, saying that he had already attained the self, and the small self, the small ego, is just a trifle in the great happening of the cosmic self, the great being of the cosmic self. And how one can just give up this? Well, if you look at this, is actually the journey from the root chakra to the top of the head, because this is actually what it is: to transform the quality of the energy prevailing in one's life, also changes the experience of the self as what it is identical to. So there are million and million ways to do this, but all of them are based on the very fact that, again, if we start with it, the big self, the big capital self, what we call the self, is again empty space, which is just freedom itself. And the small ego is that which is mainly attached to the five aggregates, as the Buddhists say, for example, the thought processes, the feeling of the form, and etc. And what we actually do to this, not to destroy, rather to transcend the small existence into the big existence, is to actually slow down and actually quench the thought processes, because, as we have said, everything exists in the mind, and by everything we mean everything. Only the nothingness doesn't exist in the mind, because even the feeling of the I and the feeling of the form is a reflection in the mind, because one has the thought of the body, therefore the life force attaches itself to the nerves, feeling oneself as the one who does things. And that is the only reason one person might feel that they are the doer, because the life force is connected to the nerve endings in the form, in the body. And when one touches something, the prana is there, and then the nerve also experiences it. And then in the consciousness, it is a reflection as one's own action. And what we do is simply just replace the small self-feeling with grander experiences. Here is one. There are several ways to do this. There are two examples, and all of these are actually embedded in the yoga science, the yoga system. All of these are embedded and, seeded. Now, for example, chanting any particular sound, whatever sound it may be, is the dissolution of the small self. Why? If you really start to chant something and you go deep into the chant, into the sound, and you realize that in that sound you are, and you just enter the soundness, being a sound, together with the sounds that you actually express through the mouth. For example, chanting Om and feeling yourself present as the nothingness in every letter, in every sound. You enter all sounds, and in reality you just enter the void, which is a silent harmony, if we wish. That is one way. Another way is the breath, to see and to concentrate only on the breath, the exhalation and the inhalation, and being so concentrated on that that all thought processes are quenched, no thoughts arises. Simply the small ego feeling goes as well, because its root was also in the mind, creating patterns. Because the small I, the small self feeling, is just a pattern, because as long as I say that my name is this and I am from that country and I have this and that quality, certainly it is not the big self, it is the small self, which is a structure, of things that are already known, are already remembered by the mind, and replayed as many times as one desires. So concentrating on any kind of thing that just quenches the thoughts will certainly lead to the dissolution of the mind. And if you dissolve the mind, everything that is within that is dissolved too. Because, you can go like thought pattern to thought pattern and slowly dissolve all thought patterns, or you can just go for the big one and just dissolve all at once, and there is no more mind. There is the thoughtlessness, which we call nirvikalpa samadhi. What does it mean? So samadhi means concentration. Vikalpa means thought process. Nir is the prefix for saying without. So nirvikalpa samadhi means concentration without thought processes, and it is considered as one of the highest attainments of human experience, or any experience, just to be dissolved 100%, where there is only oneness, without any remaining seeds that would draw the consciousness to any kind of plane of existence. Absolute liberation is born in this experience. Now, speaking about the mind and its qualities, we can say that there are good memories, bad memories, neutral memories. They are all with qualities, right? So it's actually very interesting how the mind functions and how Maya, or illusion, works, because as one starts to dissolve thoughts, certainly first the negative thoughts come because they are harder to dissolve. When one reaches the point when there are no more negative thoughts, immediately the Maya force in creation, the delusion, starts to bring up good memories, because it is already a trap you can fall into, thinking that you see things immediately better, and you think that you have achieved the finest goal without doing that much. And even the good memories are to be dissolved. Why? Because memories are memories, whatever quality they might have. Memories are seeds in the consciousness that will pull back the consciousness into the form, because the memory is, in a way, a desire. Because if you desire to remember something, it's a desire. And if it's there, even if you're unaware of it, is still in the consciousness, in the subconscious level. And after, leaving the form, and when you have the day of judgment, as it is said, in other words, the moment when your consciousness, your attainment is measured in respect to the ultimate consciousness. That is the day of judgment, when it is decided, when the cosmic law draws you to whatever place you desire during your life to go to. And then you are reborn and you continue what you have already done, what you have already attained. So after the good memories, there are also very interesting thoughts that come up in the mind. When one really wants to go to the nothingness, the mind also might start to think about nothingness, to ponder about it, to contemplate it. But again, nothingness is not something that can be contemplated on. It is something that is just there, again, without any interest in human ideas about it. Therefore, even the thought of nothingness is to be dissolved. And some people, some humans, beings, might find it hard to dissolve thoughts. What we say to this is that it's not going with a knife against the thought and slicing it into 100 pieces. It's rather becoming the witness of the mind functions. And as a thought arises, we just simply quench it by just drawing the consciousness back to the thoughtlessness, by concentrating on the breath, concentrating on an object, concentrating on a chant. And you keep drawing back, keep pulling back the consciousness, the concentration to that particular object till this absolute thoughtlessness arises. And why is it important? The question might arise to stop thought processes. Now, if we look at it, all the desires, all the wishes, all the unfulfilled things on the planet start from a seed in the consciousness that brings up a thought in the mind. Then the thought in the mind provokes the form to react. For example, when a thing in the mind rises up to which a person has aversion, immediately the body has a feeling. For example, the stomach is, has this feeling. Immediately it has this feeling, and you become conscious of the reaction of the body. So you then get back to the beginning when the thought was formed of the very aversion to something, or passion. It's actually the same thing, because passion and because aversion is just another kind of passion. So actually thoughts entangle themselves infinitely around an original thought, which is actually the root. And simply by quenching the thoughts at the very beginning, without letting it to just rise as a tsunami, you just quench it at the very beginning as a witness, and you just let it dissolve into the nothingness. And whatever thought might come up, you just keep your concentration and you just quench it. You just don't let it rise and rise. Because a lot of, for example, panic attacks and all these reactions come because the mind starts to build up these words in itself, which is not real. All kinds of things exist in the mind. Even this word, this very planet Earth, even this whole universe is in the mind. How do we know this? Well, it is out of experience of masters who, by getting to this passion, attained nirvikalpa samadhi, nirvana in other words, and at some point they just left the body. How is it? It is because it has been said that after a certain time, if you stay for too long in this state of absoluteness, because you are in an absolute and this word is not the absolute 100%, you just quench the very word. As you quench thoughts, you quench the thoughts of this word too. So at that moment, this word doesn't exist for you anymore. So it means that you cannot stay in the form anymore. because it's non-existent. So you simply just quench the form, quench the word, and that is when Mahasamadhi happens, and somebody just leaves the form out of absolute dispassion and indifference. The word is quenched as a thought, because originally this existence as a physical body was created through a thought, because as it has been said, there are three kinds of bodies around the soul, around the spirit, being the physical body, the astral body, and the causal body. And these three hold back the spirit to become spirit itself again. And it is said that the causal beings, or the elevated beings that out of thought create just universes, and this universe too, at the beginning, was just a thought, and all these real objects are just thought objects. And if one goes really deep into it, one can see that you go into an atom, then you go to the nucleus, and you go deeper and deeper, and at some point you realize that it's nothing really there, because the atoms themselves are 99% empty. So all the objects around us are 99% empty, but out of this Maya illusion, they appear to be so dense, but in reality they are like 1% real substance, the rest is just empty space. So knowing that this is also just a big thought, whatever happens in this world, one must know that it's just a thought. For example, insults that one might receive during the journey for whatever reason, even those insults that are done by other people to oneself, in reality, if you think about it, those insults make sense to you because the mind gives a sense to it, because the mind realizes what those words mean in reality. But in reality, insults are not even there, because it's only the mind that gives them a sense, a meaning, a support. Because in reality, all the letters, all the sounds are just empty space, or just free space devoid of qualities. So a sequence of devoid of qualities sounds, being the insult, is not different than any kind of empty space. So why should it mean anything else than just sitting in silence without saying anything? In reality, it is the same thing, because it is in the thought that makes sense. Because in the other person's mind, it made sense, then that sense was pushed to your mind, and then you have the reaction. But we have already discussed that relations between two non-dwellers cannot happen. So in the same way, any kind of insult or whatever reaction it might be between two forms, in the mind it has sense. In an absolute sense, it doesn't have anything to do with reality. As one dissolves everything, even the thought of otherness, or the thought of the thought, becomes impossible, because in the nothingness, even the possibility of something is questionable. So this is how we simply just give up the small self into the cosmic self, which is Brahman, Sat Chit Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. And from there is no return. One cannot fall back to the small self, because if there is nothing to fall back to, you cannot fall back. This is the simple idea, that if you destroy the support of thoughts, there is nothing to jump back to, because there is nothing to jump back to. So knowing this, one really can be blissful, knowing that it is all the cosmic self and nothing else is. So shall it be, so shall it be, so shall it be.